Well, good afternoon, everyone. We're really excited to be with you today. My name is Lindell Ormsbee, and I direct the Kentucky Water Resources Research Institute on campus, which is one of the environmental centers. And today we brought together three representatives from some state or local organizations that engage the community and also help us protect and restore Kentucky's Waterways Alliance. So they're both involved in environmental work and also community engagement. And so our three speakers today are going to be Ward Wilson, who's the Executive Director of the Kentucky Waterways Alliance, Melissa McAllister, who's the Chair of Watershed Watch in Kentucky. And so these two organizations, first we'll look at, have a statewide focus. And then Amy Soner is the Executive Director of Bluegrass Green Source, which does a lot of community engagement around environmental issues here in the Bluegrass area. So without further ado, we'll go and get started. And Ward, I'll let you get started.
Well, hi, everyone. I'm Ward Wilson. I don't look like that picture anymore. That's an old picture. I'm the Executive Director of Kentucky Waterways Alliance. We're a statewide group, and our mission is to protect, restore, and celebrate the waterways of Kentucky. And I'm so glad to be here with you all on Earth Day. So our vision is a Kentucky that sustains and celebrates our vast network of healthy waterways. I'm sure a lot of you know we have over 90,000 miles of streams and rivers and waterways in this state, and they're beautiful and they deserve protection, and they all should be there for the wildlife and the people who use them. So we have 4 goals in our strategic plan. And so I thought I'd just hit those high points and tell you how we work. The first goal is working on the watershed level. And watersheds are big. The Ohio River watershed covers many states to small ones that are in your neighborhood. We work at all different scales. We work on the Ohio River. We work on small little watersheds like Bacon Creek too in Hart County. So we try to get with people who live in that area and activate them. And so we defend clean water. That's the protect part of our mission. We learn what we can. We get the information out to people. We march on Washington if we need to. We've been up on Capitol Hill talking to our elected officials too. And the third way is we just make people aware. You know, people are not going to work to protect and restore waterways if they don't even know about them. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't know their home waterway, and most people don't know their watershed address. So we work in all sorts of ways, from fun things like drinking beer to planting habitat for monarch butterflies to cleanups, whatever we can do to get people to know and care. And that's the engaging part of this. And then we work through partnerships. You know, we've only got a few staff. We do a lot of work, and the only way we can do it is through partnerships. We partner with everybody on this call and value that partnership. We try to bring, you know, the strengths we have, and we combine them with the strengths of the other groups, and it's just great. It's the best way to get things done, and it's the most fun way too. So that's it. That's the quick version. Thank you very much, and I'll look forward to questions.
All right. Thank you, Ward. And so we're going to hold questions to the end, but one of the objectives of this session was just to expose everybody to some of the statewide or regional organizations that basically help protect our waterways, and so that maybe you hadn't heard about them before, but hopefully you had. And at the end of our presentations, we'll give you a chance to ask some questions. So our next presentation is by Melissa McAllister, who is the Chair of Watershed Watch in Kentucky, and she's going to give us a little bit of overview of that organization and what they do. So Melissa.
Okay, thank you. Continuing on Ward's theme of relating to your local waterways and helping protect them, I help lead the Watershed Watch in Kentucky organization, which is a volunteer water sampling group that looks at our streams, rivers, and lakes. And next slide. We have a mission statement to improve and protect water quality by raising community awareness and supporting implementation of the Clean Water Act and other water quality regulations. But our goal is really, with our tagline, goes along with the explore, connect, protect, is to get people out into the streams and help them better understand what's going on there, and if there are any problems or issues, ways that we can help address those. And this is a map of the state that shows the major river basins, from the Four Rivers Basin in Western Kentucky all the way to the Big Sandy River Basin. And Watershed Watch has distinct basin groups for each of these areas. All those little marks, we have sampling sites across the state. And our introductory sampling has kind of two components. First, we have these field kits that we use for field chemistry measurements that can only be done at the creek. And so we look at dissolved oxygen, pH, conductivity, and temperature. And then we also, next slide, do a grab sample collection. So we use these bottles here with a little form that goes along with it and take those to the lab for analysis of different types of chemical or bacteria components in the water of interest to us. And next slide. We also have a secondary training that helps the volunteers understand the biological conditions in the stream. So what lives in the stream can actually help tell us a lot about the general water quality conditions. And then also looking at how to assess habitat that would tell us how healthy the ecological functions are there and how well it can support aquatic life. And just a few high spots is that we were formed in 1998, so it's been in existence over 20 years. We have 3 annual sampling events. We're preparing for the May sampling event where we'll do field chemistry and look at pathogens by checking for E. coli levels. And then we do that again in July and September. And in September, some of the basins also look at metals and nutrients. And then we summarize these results in data reports. We have an online data portal, and we have an annual conference every year where we present our findings and help volunteers who want to take the next step toward acting on their results. And those are our website addresses for general information, or the database, the second address. And anyone who's interested in participating is welcome to contact Joanne Palmer or me. Or there's also an interest form on our website at kywater.org. And if you submit that, we'll respond to you and help you get set up. And that's all.
All right, great. Thanks, Melissa. So I'm going to leave this up just for a little longer in case anyone wants to write down that information. But I do believe these sessions are being recorded. So later on, you can go back and look at those. But our next speaker is Amy Soner, who's the Executive Director of Bluegrass Green Source. And Amy, we'll let you take over now.
All right, thank you so much. I'm really excited to wrap up because I feel like we've gone from statewide to local, and that's great. And also some of our programs are very different, but sort of coalesce into what Bluegrass Green Source does. You can go to the next slide. We are a nonprofit that serves Central Kentucky, as Lindell mentioned. Our mission is to empower the bluegrass to create a sustainable environment. And we do that by encouraging your neighbors and your parents and your kids and your grandparents even, that small changes really can add up and make a really big impact right here in Central Kentucky and in your backyard. So why do we do that? You could change the slide. We follow the Kentucky Environmental Education Council, which is a statewide agency, does a survey every 5 years, and found in the last survey found that only 55% of Kentuckians can answer general questions. What is a watershed? Where does our energy come from? And so we feel like this is a direct reason why we need to get out there and do some outreach to the people in Central Kentucky. We reach over 100,000 people each year. Last year was a little bit odd, but generally over 100,000 people each year with this direct environmental education. A couple of the things that the survey found, which I thought were really important, is that most of the people in Kentucky believe that you can protect our environment and our economy. And in today's day and age with everything being so polarized, I thought that this was something really to hold on to and to really be excited about. Next slide. So how do we do that? How do we do what we do our environmental education? Well, first of all, we talk about environmental education in this sense as our preschool through high school program. So everything from working with preschoolers, 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds, and getting them outside and understanding how nature has patterns and things like that, to high schoolers and talking about careers and green infrastructure careers or green careers in general. All of our K-12 education is aligned to the Kentucky academic standards, and it's designed to be experiential. So you're actually doing things hands-on, and you're not just listening to someone chat. We also supplement teacher education. So we're not doing anything new. We're just taking what teachers are already doing and giving it a little bit more context into the world. Next slide. Our outreach programs, this is sort of our adult programming. So this is what we do. We really base it on social marketing. So the idea that you can change your behaviors, or how do we encourage you to change your behaviors? We have programs where we do workshops that provide education and help break down barriers, help people understand how they can have a lush lawn, for example, without putting just blanketing it with chemicals. We have a business program where we certify businesses as sustainable. Next slide. We also do a lot of volunteer and community events. Right now for Earth Day, we are doing 24 cleanups in Central Kentucky over about 9 days. There's about 1,000 people will start volunteering, really trying to be part of that sort of show that small changes and big impact. You're only picking up a bag of trash, but you're collectively picking up 8 tons of litter. We also did a sustainability summit recently, which was really successful, where we brought in regional sustainability people from Louisville, from Cincinnati, from Bowling Green, and had them discuss some of the actions that they're doing and the successes they've had. Then we had local Central Kentucky people talking about some challenges and opportunities that they saw, and it resulted in action teams. So now we have 4 action teams on waste, energy, water, and agriculture to figure out how individual people can really help bring Central Kentucky get past those barriers. One of the things I wanted to highlight in my last 30 seconds was a resource that we've recently created for a virtual world, but it sort of brings all the things that I talked about together. So the website is there, bggreensource.org/watershed-improvement. You can see this in more detail because I'm going to go through quickly. But if you go to the next slide, you can see part of the aspects of this. So this is all a website that we created. The first part is really dynamic understanding of water quality and water quality exploration and watersheds, everything from videos to graphics. The next one. And then how to get involved. Watershed Watch is on here. You can go to the next one. We're just flying through these last ones. Student activities. So these are hands-on things that you can do with stuff that you have already in your cupboards. So just a quick view of sort of a comprehensive idea of how Bluegrass Green Source works. I think that's it.
All right, great. Thanks, Amy. And so here's contact information for Bluegrass Green Source. And so I'm now going to open the floor up for questions. We kind of went through that quickly. You can see there is a lot of information and a lot of activities going on in the state related to our waterways, and a lot of opportunities to get involved if you'd like to volunteer. So at this point, I'll see if there's any questions. If you've got a question, you can use the chat, chat feature, or if you'd like to ask a question, you could raise your hand and we can unmute you, I think. All right, all these shy people.
Maybe we went through it too fast.
I can ask a question to help us get started then with something. You know, based on the earlier presentations, were there any areas that were presented in terms of funding opportunities? Because sometimes, you know, citizen science isn't always, you know, publicly supported, but yet, you know, I don't know, are these grant programs good for citizen science? And then also, what are some of, like, you know, the public benefits or outcomes beyond just the data collection, which is informative in its own regard, but, you know, what does this do for people?
It's a great question. And that is something that has been on my mind a lot after I took over as chair last year, because we want to engage and retain our samplers. And at first, it's interesting the first year or two to see what kind of results they get for their stream of interest. But I am having discussions with Division of Water on ways that we can better target our sampling sites so that the data is more meaningful and impactful and something that they can utilize, and maybe even like help them get to achieve their goals, like identifying a priority watershed and providing some baseline water quality data. Or if there's a site where they've been pouring a lot of grant funding in and doing different projects, has that water possibly met a level that deems success monitoring so that they can see how much the conditions have improved. So that is something I really want to work toward with the organization.
Thanks, Jason, for that question. Here's a question from Laura Magnus. She says, I live on a fairly well-traveled road in Rowan County. I'm getting a lot of trash. I'm getting a lot of trash in the ditch between my property and the road. What can I do? I clean out often. My watershed is in the North Fork of Triplet Creek, which I think goes into the Licking River.
That is in the Licking River Basin. Triplet Creek did have a watershed initiative, a group that was working on different water quality problems. I also, I can put you in touch with the Licking River Basin Coordinator who helps local residents address issues like this, and she might be able to give you more individualized attention. I'll send that to you.
Yeah, and at one time, Eastern Kentucky Pride had a very extensive program that was addressing solid waste issues. I think that organization still exists, but in a much reduced capacity. Any other questions? Yes, John.
This is, am I unmuted now? I guess I am. This is sort of, maybe it's peripherally, but I know the Big Sandy intake. I was looking at it's been a couple of months now, that the annual report of our local water system, which comes out, which noted that they exceeded some of the basic standards during 1 or 2 days, I don't remember how many, several months back in their annual report, and said that it wasn't really a health problem, but probably was a health problem, that it didn't exceed the highest limitation. I just wondered, as a matter of, you get this piece of paper months later that tells you they may have had a real problem, but it's really too late. So I don't know if we can do anything about it. I mean, I suppose it's better than not receiving any notice, but I'm sure they're following some regulation. And I don't know whether the purification system in that respect, they may be doing, I think overall it's probably as good a system as anybody has in Eastern Kentucky. But the fact that they sent it out so, months later is something that I was a little concerned about. I don't know if anybody has any comments about that.
Yeah, I could address that briefly, John. I think you're probably referring to just this would be drinking water utility you're referring to, is sending out
Yes.
notices of compliance. So as you've alluded to, the state does sample and monitor water distribution systems for lots of different constituents. And if there are certain numerical violations that exceed limits, then they're required to notify their customers of those. But if there's any immediate health challenge that would typically be associated with those, they would typically intervene immediately if there was some immediate health consideration. But as you alluded to, there's a wide range of chemicals that are looked at, and those limits are kind of set by EPA in consultation with other scientists and researchers. Sometimes those are a moving target. They change over time, but those probably are reflective of the current standards. So, Jason, did you have anything to add to that? I think you're muted. I think you're muted, Jason.
Am I unmuted now? It was
Yeah.
a host a mute control thing. So
Yeah,
we
sorry
gotta
about that.
figure it out. You're all good. I guess I could say that, one problem is when people are renters, like at an apartment complex or something like that, they may not have access to the reports. And, some fun things like disinfection byproduct rules and things like that, when they're exceeded, there's a long-term risk, but some people may want to have the information a little quicker. But I think a lot of it's just what the national standards are in terms of communicating information, and it's like an annual report. But it's based upon an older system of communicating information. So some utilities do put their information more regularly and more frequently on their websites, but that's above and beyond. So getting them to go above and beyond the minimum, I think, is always a challenge, and especially when they're resource limited and there's only a handful of people working for the utility in the area. But I think it's always a good question. My students often, say, I've never seen that report before. I've never seen it, because they've been renting their whole life, or their parents saw the report as part of their bill and they never saw it. So you've raised a really good question with regards to folks on public utilities. It's a national issue. I think people want information quicker and want it now, and if it's available, let's do it. But I think it's a great question.
All right, thanks, John. And I think our time is up essentially for this session. So we're going to basically let you all jump off to see if you want to visit one of the other sessions. And then we're basically going to go back through this session again. So if you came in late, if you want to stay on for that, or we'll let you all basically exit the meeting and join another session. And so I'll give you all about a minute before we get started.